everybody, and welcome back to Global Talent Links Book Quest for Hatchet. This is session 2 for the book written by Gary Paulson. If you have not done so already, please hit pause, go back, take a look at session 1, and read chapters 1, 2, and 3 from Hatchet. Okay? So our signposts, consider these signposts while reading each chapter. We went over this in session 1 about what these signposts mean and how they will benefit you as the reader to further understand the text that you are reading. There are hints and tips along the way for your own comprehension purposes. There is a video on how to be an active reader. I'm not going to play it for you. You can take a look, click it, walk yourself through that. Being an active reader, being an active listener engages you in the text to help you understand and make those connections, which is an important thing to do as a reader. I think it's our job to make connections with someone or something in the story. What do you think so far? So we've learned a little bit. Remember, if you haven't done so, go back and read. What do you think so far? Can you relate to divorce? Maybe not in your own household, but do you know of anyone, maybe a friend or someone whose parents are divorced? Did it have an impact on the family? Maybe it didn't, which is wonderful. Have you ever been upset with your parents over their actions? Maybe roles were reversed and you sort of felt like the parent in the family. Would you ever want to fly a plane? Not be in a plane as a passenger, but would you ever want to fly one yourself? Why or why not? I don't think I would. That's a lot of responsibility. All right, what did we learn in chapter 1? So Brian is flying to Canada to be with his dad. His parents got divorced. There is a secret that is going on that Brian is deciding to hold on to right now, and he's struggling with that decision to hold on to this secret. Let me just adjust my camera. And he's going to go live with his dad for the summer. And we learn, and I also started to pick on that, I think he wants to. I think he would like to be away from his mom for right now. The pilot allows Brian to fly the small passenger plane for a little bit. And then when the pilot takes back control, we know that something happens, right? We've read the heart attack and the details that are going, something bad happens. And Brian needs to take over. Mom and Brian have a strained relationship right now after the divorce. And before he gets onto the plane, though, this is foreshadowing. Before he gets onto the plane, Mom gives him a hatchet. Right? The title always means something. So this hatchet is part of Brian's survival, and we'll see it over and over and over again in the story. It is very symbolic for Brian and his survival. In chapter 2, we learn what that something wrong is. The pilot has a heart attack, right? And the plane is going down. Brian in that moment is panic stricken. He's fearful. Right, and there's an acronym for fear: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And in this case, Brian has to face everything head on and rise to the occasion. He tries to fly the plane. He's struggling. He's sending out his Mayday help. Decides, do I land over the lake? Do I try my best in the forest? And he does succeed-ish in a way in landing the plane. The conflict that Brian has is internal and external, right? The external conflict is Brian in the plane. The internal conflict is, how does he land without crashing and dying himself? Does he let this plane run out of fuel and slowly, hopefully, head down, or does he crash? Does he try to land? And like I said, he decides, well, he struggles with the decision of aiming for the water or aiming for the woods. In chapter 3, Brian truly believes that he's going to die. That is either one of the most scary moments that you would ever have in your life, or most peaceful, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Giving it all up and knowing that you're going to die, or panicking knowing that you're going to die. So he braces for impact and crashes through the forest into a lake. He pushes himself out the front window. The pilot is dead, right? And as he lands in the lake, he's now also dealing with the elements around him and the fact that he could drown, right? The water is almost like pulling him under, like it's got a grasp on him. But if you think about it, the impact of the plane into the lake, it's sucking down. And that's the pull that's trying to bring Brian down to the bottom of the lake as well. He blacks out at the end of chapter 3, and we'll learn what happens later. For setting, setting is one of the elements that is crucial to a successful story. Setting is a character in and of itself, right? This setting is very important in the story Hatchet. I think if it were set somewhere else, it might not have had the greatest impact, or this moment of survival that Brian has to go through. So learn why setting is important. You can click on that link right there. It'll bring you to a video, a quick, friendly video of the importance of setting. So go ahead, hit pause and watch that video and then come back. Why do you think setting is important? What did you learn? How do you think the setting for Hatchet is going to affect the plot? Right now, we've got woods, forest, cold, lake, plain, land, lone survivor. I mean, there's not much positivity leaning Brian's way right now with the crashing of his plane. One of the greatest things you can do as a reader is make a connection to the story, right? So literature connection. There are 3 kinds of connection that you can make before, during, and after the reading, right? You read the title Hatchet. How can I connect? I've never worked an axe. I don't have a hatchet. I'm not a wilderness type person. Am I ever going to connect? There's text to self. This reminds me of my own life. So while you're reading, you make the connection to your own life. I can relate to this character because maybe your parents have gone through a divorce. Maybe you know what it's like to be alone. If it was me, I tend to do that a lot. I put myself in the character's shoes and try to decide what I would do in that scenario. You can have a connection text to text. This, what you're reading, reminds me of another book or a movie or a show or a song. This is different from other books I've read because even though it's different, you're still making the connection to a piece of literature. This is the same as other books because, and then when you start to pick up on those similarities, maybe it's because you enjoy reading books with whatever it is that is the same. And then the text to the world, you can make a connection to a text in the world that is going on around you. The world can be simply your house, your neighborhood, your school, your town, the city, the country in which you live, or on a grand scheme, the world in general. But if you can learn to start making these literature connections yourself, you're going to fall in love more and more with reading. It's one of the most important things I try to instill in my students. Make a connection so you can relate. And when you relate, you fall in love with stories. And the falling in love with stories doesn't always have to be a good thing. You can connect and read and relate on a harder topic, but at least you're making that connection. Making predictions. So click on the image for a video about predictions. I think predictions is one of the greatest tools as a teacher I can use for my students because students love to know if they're right or wrong. So if you encourage your students, if I encourage my students to make a connection and make a prediction, they're coming back wanting to read and know more. So what do you think is going to happen to Brian when he wakes up? What clues are leading to your prediction? And what do you predict is going to happen with his parents, right? Brian is supposed to land in Canada to meet his dad. He's not meeting his dad. He is not landing. What do you think is going on in his parents' minds? Do they know yet? So for next time, for session 3, please read chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 6. Please pay close attention to how Brian reacts to conflict. We'll learn more about conflict, but Brian's going to face a lot of internal conflicts happen inside his head and external conflicts that happen with the world around him, okay? And something to think about, the lesson Brian recalls from his English teacher. Teachers have a funny way of popping up in your brain sometimes. One of his does, and it's a vital lesson that he brings into his survival mode, okay? That's for next time. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out. And I'll see you at our next session for Hatchet by Gary Paulson.